Now we're going to kind of switch modes into preparing our hearts and minds for the sermon today. Pastor Adonia will be continuing our sermon series about how can we really provide a welcoming community for any people that walk in our doors. And the topic today is how the family is church and how church is the family, because everything that's going on in our families is extended and is something that is part of the church, and also vice versa. So I'm really excited for her to speak today and to share a little bit more around what that means to her and what that means to each and every person in this room. But we're going to have an offering video to kind of set the tone. So I'd like to ask everybody to feel free to close your eyes and engage in the offering video, and then Pastor Adonia will come up and start our sermon today. Thank you.
Like a bull chasing the matadors, a man left to his own schemes. Everybody needs someone beside him, shining like a lighthouse from the sea. Brother, let me be your shelter, never leave you all alone. I can be the one you call when you're low. Brother, let me be your fortress when the night winds are driving on. Be the one to light the way, bring you home. Face down in the desert now, there's a cage locked around my heart. I found a way to drop the keys when my failures were. Now my hands can't reach that far. I ain't made for rivalry, I can never take the world alone. I know that in my weakness I am strong, but it's your love that brings me home. Brother, let me be your shelter, never leave you all alone. I can be the one you call when you're low. Brother, let me be your fortress when the night winds are driving on. Be the one to light the way, bring it home. And when you call and need me near, saying where you go, brother, I'm right here. And on those days when the sky begins to fall, you're the blood of my blood, we can get through it all. Brother, let me be your shelter, never leave you all alone. I could be the one to call when you feel alone. Brother, let me be your fortress when the night winds are driving on. Be the one to light the way, bring it home. Brother, let me be your shelter, never leave you all alone. I can be the one you call when you're low. Brother, let me be your fortress when the night winds are driving on. Be the one to light the way, bring it home. Be the one to light the way, bring it home.
Oh, I used that quote in a message a few weeks ago. That's really cool. Isn't that a great song? I actually really appreciate, I'm going to be talking about community today, but I really appreciate my community because I ended up not having an offering song right before service, but Clara, and I had a really hard time thinking of one, and Clara suggested this song, and so this connection of community I felt is really appreciated, so thank you. Oh, good morning, everyone. My name is Pastor Adonia. My husband Mike and I pastor the church here, and it's really wonderful to see all of you today. This beautiful morning after the rain. Did it rain wherever you were last night? We weren't expecting it, but all of a sudden we heard these pitter-patter of the rain, and I always love when there's a rain in the night, and the morning it feels like it's such a fresh new day. So I'm grateful we can all come together today. Today, my topic is the family is the church, and the church is a family. And this is based on the second point of our vision statement, which is that we are a church that isn't a church, but a family where the experience of community, love, and God's grace abound. So today I'm really focusing on this part of the family. And you might have noticed we really focus a lot on the family in this faith. It seems like we're always talking about the family. And I think in many faith traditions, you will hear about the family to some degree and the relationships of the family and the family being centered on God. But I haven't found anybody who talks about it like we do. I feel like this is where we shine. So we really see it as the center of everything, right? Where it all started, where it's all completed, and where we can restore things that have gone wrong. So just a really brief recap of the beginning of the Bible. Many of you know the story of Adam and Eve and how God created them, the first children of his heart, and with the dream and the hope that they would be the first parents and the eternal ancestors of all of humanity that would multiply love and blessings and compassion and care and the true experience of joy that their children and their children's children and all of their descendants would experience, including us. However, we also know that that is not the way it happened, that humanity started off on the wrong foot. Adam and Eve weren't able to see each other with God's eyes, to see each other from God's viewpoint. Their motivations for relating with each other became selfish. And then this discord and dysfunction only multiplied, even with the first children, with Cain and Abel, right? There was jealousy, there was apathy, there was anger and rage, and then Cain killed Abel. This is the first family. I don't even want to think about what God must have been experiencing with all of his hope and finally having completed all of creation, finally being able to place his children in the Garden of Eden and watch it all blossom, only to be destroyed in the first moments of humanity's history. But from there, of course, it didn't stop there. That's, Cain and Abel, where do you think they learned how to relate to each other from? We learned from our parents. They learned from their parents. They became parents. Their children, well, Abel didn't become a parent, but Cain's children learned from him, and Adam and Eve's other children. And this experience of wrong motivations and not being able to see each other from God's perspective and not being able to love one another beyond what's good for myself only multiplied into history. And from there, all the brokenness that we see in the world even today came about. But that's not how we want to live our life, right? We want to see a better world. So how? How do we go about that? I think most of us are doing the best we can. But I think that in general, we like to try to treat the symptoms. So people invest into politics to create a better structure for our nation to work better and to provide more opportunities for people and justice. People invest into schools so that if children can have a better education, they can know how to live better and they can create a better world. Or people invest into the environment, because if we don't take care of our earth, then what will there be for the future? And all of these things are good things to work on. And actually, we have the same examples from Reverend Moon and his wife. They invested so many things into feeding the hungry and into education and into the arts and into the media. Of course, all of these things are important. But I really believe that it won't make the difference that we hope it will make until we get to the root of the problem. Until we put back in place what was lost in the beginning, which was the family. So that's a really brief overview of why we focus so much on the family in our faith. And we believe that what we do in our families has a huge significance. Families are so important. We have to take care of our babies. What we do in our families actually has a huge significance, not just for our own experience in our life, but actually in history. You might think, oh, it's no big deal, or my family is so small it doesn't make that much of a difference, or maybe that what I do out in the world is more important and affects more people than what I do in my family. But actually, I believe that the relationships that we create in our family might be the most important thing that you can do in your entire life. And then from there, right, expand. So this is our focus on the family. But what does this have to do with our church? What does this have to do with our vision statement today? Well, since the family is the school of love, right, where we learn how to give, and we learn how to receive, we learn compassion, and we learn how to work together with our siblings, sometimes through difficulties, how to love our children when it's hard, how to love our spouse when it's hard. Since the family is a school of love, how we learn to do things in the family is likely how we'll do things with everyone and everything in our life. And so my first point is that the church is actually just an extension or expansion of our family. The health and the vibrancy of our families is reflected in the health and vibrancy of our community. I have a quote here. This is from Ephesians 4:16. From whom the whole body, joined and held together by every joint with which it is equipped, when each part is working properly, makes the body grow so that it builds itself up in love. I feel like it works with your physical body, but it also works as our body as a community, right? When our physical body, if all of our joints are working correctly, if everything connects well, then naturally our body grows, right? From a child to an adult, and then it builds itself up in love. And the same in our communities. Not one of us constitutes the community, right? All of us are like one of these joints, one of these parts. And when we're working properly, when we have proper relationships, and when there's love connecting us, naturally our body or our community will grow, built up in love. So everything is so interesting, especially as a pastor. I get to hear from so many different people. I know at lunchtime, sometimes you have a conversation with somebody, you get a glimpse into their life, and I really encourage that kind of relationship and community. But especially as a pastor, we kind of hear from everybody, and it's really interesting to see how our community grows or struggles are so closely related to the growth or the struggles of the families in our community. So everything we see going on in the community here is, to some degree, a reflection of what is going on in the families. If our families are struggling, if there's discord between husband and wife, this could go for any community, right? If there's difficulties in the families, there's unhappiness in the families, yet we try to make our church attractive. It's just like a facade on a building, right? We can do many things. We could have great music. We could have fantastic sermons. We could have a nice cafe where you can get coffee before service. So please come and get coffee before service, right? We could have everything looking nice, but it's like a facade on the building where once people come in, right? If you go into a building that has a big facade, like in Las Vegas, there's a lot of this, right? You can see these gorgeous buildings, but actually if you go behind the building, it's just big air conditioning units and dirt. Right? If you go into a building that has a huge facade, once you get inside, you realize, the building's not actually that big. It's actually a small building. It's similar with our communities. If we try to make our church attractive to people, but we don't have love, if we don't have good relationships, we might attract people, but then when they come in, they see, this is what it really is. You see what the church is really like. But the flip side of this is that when there is harmony and genuine love in and between our families, then it just naturally flows outward. You can't even contain it. You couldn't contain it in a small building if you tried. It just draws people in. Like it says here in Ephesians, if the body is healthy, it will grow. You don't need the facade. The second point that I want to talk about, that actually the church is a family in its own right. We are family to each other. We're intertwined, we're interconnected because we're all children of God. It's so interesting. Even science recognizes this. I don't think they like to admit it, but science recognizes this. They call it, what do they call it? Biological atom. They recognize that all human DNA, all the little mutations and things, they can find the connections that connect all humanity from all corners of the earth to a single person, a single origin. So sometimes I think we say, we're all family, and we try to think, yeah, I guess. So, but they look pretty different from me. They live their life different from me. They think different from me. And we try to think of ourselves as family. But actually, in scientific reality, we all have a common ancestor. We are family. Each and every one of us. I can look at each and every one of your faces and know that there is a connection, an undeniable, tangible, as well as spiritual connection between myself and every single one of you. We are family. In the Bible, the church is referred to as the body of Christ. So we are a body, and we all play different parts, but we are interdependent and crucial. And this is a quote from 1 Corinthians, chapter 12, verses 12 through 31. For just as the body is one, and has many members, fingers, toes, legs, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body. So it is with Christ. For the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot should say, well, because I'm not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear should say, well, because I'm not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. So we are all interconnected, and what we do and how we're doing, although we are all different, we might shine in different areas, we might have different gifts or talents, we might have different struggles or difficulties there as well, but we all have a role to play and an impact on the community. This is a quote from Reverend Moon. And this quote, he's specifically talking about a husband and wife relationship, but he also relates it to our relationships with everybody in the world. I think this might be helpful for you in your relationship, in your family, but also in our community, okay? In the fallen world, people insist that they are right and that defending themselves is their highest priority. Do you guys see that often? But now is the era of the teaching that tells us we exist to protect the other before ourselves. The direction is opposite to what it was before. The husband says, if you are not happy as my wife, it is my responsibility. And the wife says, if you are not happy as my husband, it is my responsibility. Isn't that a really amazing way of thinking? I feel like it's so easy to say, you're not taking care of me. What about my needs? What about my heart? Right? This is simple words on a screen, but this is really hard to do. The flowers of love bloom when we assume responsibility. The flowers of love do not bloom when each insists on their own right. When two people are living for the sake of each other, to the degree of risking their own lives, the flowers will bloom. When the flowers bloom, both the angelic world and God will seek the light and fragrance of that love. I have one other quote, and this is from the Divine Principle. Some of you may be familiar with it. Suppose there is a perfect machine whose every part is the only one of its kind in the world, and there is no way to either procure or make a replacement for any of them. No matter how small or insignificant a single part may be, its value is then the same as that of the whole machine. Similarly, a fully mature person is unique in all the universe. No matter how insignificant he may seem, his value is equivalent to that of the entire cosmos. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? I was thinking about this, and it's almost hard to grasp. I feel like we don't see ourselves with those eyes. We don't see ourselves as irreplaceable in the eyes of God. I think that sometimes we see other people as replaceable. You know, there's that song, like, don't you ever think you're irreplaceable. I could have another you in a minute, you know. Maybe in that kind of relationship, but to God, there is no replacement for Nancy. There is no replacement for Ryoko-san. There's no replacement. But we don't always see ourselves or the people in our community with those eyes. The last point I wanted to share about is that really part of our vision is that we want to create the kind of community where people can have this experience. I realize that not everybody experienced this in their families, right? And as I encouraged earlier, you know, the most important work that we can do is to restore our relationships in our families, to create the beautiful, loving relationships between spouses and children and siblings. But I recognize that some of us are very, very far from being able to experience that. Some of us never received that kind of a love, never even saw an example of how you would go about doing that in your life, right? So it's almost, I think it would be disheartening to hear, oh, you know, this is the most important work in your life, to go fix your family. And you're like, what? I don't even know where to begin. But something that's really special about the community, if a community is indeed a family, is that we can learn family relationships within our community as well. I had a friend visit me this week. I haven't seen her in over 6 years, but we were best friends in second grade, okay? I don't know, I'm just naturally attracted to Asian people. And I grew up in a very small little town in rural Missouri where everybody was very white, but there were 2 Asian kids in my school, and I was best friends with both of them. And so this is my friend Melissa. We became friends in second grade. And she visited me this week, and we were able to take a walk together, and we took a hike together, and she shared with me, she said, you know, most of my memories of childhood was when I was at your house and we were playing together. And it blew me away. Because actually, we only got together a couple times a year. We were very rural, so we were spread out. You know, it wasn't like we could just walk over to each other's house and hang out. We had to do planning if we wanted to have a play date. But she said, you know, most of my memories of childhood are with you and your family growing up. And she's at a place in her life right now where she actually doesn't have a relationship with either her mother or her father. She had a difficult childhood. And even though our community was very small, but between us, we had community. And we created memories and a relationship that lasted for the last almost 30 years. And it's my hope that as we continue to grow in our relationship, that she will gain some confidence to again make a relationship with her family, right? And I think that's how it is for many of us. We don't know how to go back. We don't know how to restore things from the past. But I believe that we can create a community here where we learn true love relationships, where we experience the love and the giving of others to ourselves and giving love to others. I've seen, as Mike mentioned in his service last week, we've been seeing a lot of that, of families taking care of each other through difficult times. And people really need to experience that, especially if they didn't get it in their family life. When I was on my mission program after high school, it was called Special Task Force. So it sounds very like official and almost like special ops or something. But mostly we were just raising money for mission programs, and we were talking to people and learning about our faith, having many great experiences. But although that's what I thought I went there for, I thought I was there to be a great leader and to be a special task force. Actually, I had some things from my childhood that I hadn't been able to work out. I had some resentments towards my father and my mother that I hadn't been able to forgive them for. But through my time with this new community of young people that I was working with, that I was sleeping with, that I was showering with. We did everything really closely together. And, you know, sometimes there are people that we were paired up with that we didn't get along with so well. Or sometimes we had somebody who was a team leader that we felt wrongfully misjudged us. But we were really encouraged, and we saw people going through these relationships all the time. We learned how to work them out and how to forgive and how to create a new relationship with somebody, even when the previous relationship wasn't good. And I realized, oh, I can apply this to my family. It doesn't have to be the way that it's been. God has a different viewpoint on my parents than I have on my parents, right? My parents are actually just children of God, and so am I. So even though I thought I was there to do like really flashy great things, I think some of the most important things I got out of my mission time was that I was able to go back to my parents and recreate my perspective of them and my relationship with them. And that was the value of that community that I had. And so that's what I want to create here. I think we have that in a lot of ways, but let's be aware of each other. Let's be aware that not everybody is in the same place in their life, but we can have grace and we can have compassion and we can have love for each one of us. And then maybe in this setting or in this community, we can learn something that we can restore our family with. That's basically my points for today. I have a third page and there's nothing on it, so that's the end of it. But I just want to say, how grateful that Mike and I are for this community. When we first arrived, I had never grown up in a large community. Rural Missouri, we went to church once a month or every other week, and even so, it was very small. And although I had close friends and I loved people, I never felt the kind of welcome that I felt when we arrived here. And it's made all the difference for us and for our children. My daughter was super, super shy when we got here. She was like a leech attached to me wherever we went and whatever we did, especially if there was anybody else there that wasn't our family. But right away, she opened up. And as you know, she is one of the most social children now. So I know that already this community has something really special in it. And just like I mentioned earlier, when a community is healthy and vibrant and happy, it's not even something you can keep to yourself. It just naturally, it's going to spill out right through the doors and through the windows and to our neighborhood and to all the people that we know. And it's going to draw people in. Not so that we can say, oh, look at our church, look at how we're growing, look how great we are. But no, because we want people to experience the kind of love, the kind of transformation, the kind of depth of relationships that we experience here, because that is what God wants for everyone. So I'm going to finish there. Please join me in prayer. Most beloved Heavenly Parent, we greet you this beautiful morning as your family, as your children, as true brothers and sisters, not just because we say we are, but even if we said we weren't, we can't deny that each one of us is inextricably and inexplicably connected to each other because of you. Heavenly Parent, thank you for your never-ending love and hope and patience with us. We know we're not this spiritually mature person yet, but we know that when you look at us, you see us as having the value of the entire cosmos, because you cannot be happy without each one of us in your hearts. Please help us to see ourselves with your eyes, and please help us to see our brothers and sisters with your eyes. Although we may look different, although we come from different backgrounds, although we may think differently from each other at times, Heavenly Parent, there's nothing that could eternally separate us. So let us reach out to one another. Let us embrace each other. Let us create the kind of relationships in our community and our families that we wish to see in this world, and then watch it happen. Thank you so much again for this time to be together each week. I pray that you can be with us as we step out of these doors, as we go into the rest of our lives, that we can carry this love with us, that people can be drawn to it when they see it in us, and that we can share your love with this world. I offer this prayer in my name, Michael and Adonia Henschrick of the Blessed Central Family. Amen and adieu. Thank you.
All right. So we have a couple of really exciting announcements going on in our community this week. So we're going to go ahead and start with those. As some of you might know, last week Roger, for her, a member in our community, kicked off a new ministry called The Amazing Natural World. And everybody had a great time as he led them on a hike in the local area and saw some beautiful views. So we wanted to share some pictures from that wonderful time. As you can see, a lot of the youth joined, and the views are pretty incredible. So please feel free to ask some of the people who attended about their time and experiences, and details on the next hike will be sent out shortly. Oh, so lovely. And now we have a really exciting one as well. We want to send a sincere congratulations to Sunny and Sarah Ogawa, who had a brand new baby girl just this week, and her name is Kiana Chizuru Ogawa. So let's give them a beautiful big round of applause. Isn't she so precious? And not only one, but we also have a second new member of our community as well. We want to give a big congratulations to Emmanuel and Priska on the birth of their new baby, Jodel Grace Shima. So let's give them a round of applause as well. Such beautiful baby girls who came into the world this week. We're so happy to see they're healthy and having a great time, clearly, in those pictures. Today, we also are continuing our series that we're running around Who Are We as a Community? It's a presentation for all new or longtime members who are interested in learning more. Where is this community going? What is the vision of our community? And what's happening next? And most importantly, how you can become enrolled in that. And this presentation will be given by our own Pastor Mike in the French ministry room right next to the cafe over there. So please feel free to grab your lunch downstairs and join us. That's going to be today during lunch. So please come on and get connected to understand a little bit about the future of our community. And in the spirit of transparency, we have a quarterly copy of our financial report, and we have some printed copies in the back. So if you're interested, please feel free to grab a copy on your way to lunch today as well. And as usual, every Thursday, we have our wonderful Dr. Hendrick, who is leading Bible study 7 p.m. every Thursday here in the cafe. So every week, he goes into new topics, and it's really for anybody who wants to learn a little bit deeper about the Bible and engage in some really fruitful conversation. So please come on out if you're bored on a Thursday, or if you're always looking for a deeper meaning, please come on out. We're so grateful that he runs these. I've heard they're a great success. And also in the spirit of coming in and joining all the activities in our community, this week our movie night is called The Chariots of Fire, and it's going to be this Friday at 7 p.m. It's a classic movie based on the true story of two British athletes who competed in the 1924 Summer Olympics in Paris. And there was an Englishman named Harold Abrams who was Jewish, and there was a lot of anti-Semitism going on during that time. So the race in the movie shows about how he was able to kind of compete against the Flying Scotsman, Eric Liddell, in the 100-meter race. And I've never seen it, so I don't know the ending, so please come on out to see what happened in this really exciting movie. And as we know, there's upcoming Divine Principle workshops happening at the IPEC Center in Las Vegas, the International Peace Education Center. If you're interested in attending, or if you know of anybody in your family or in your friends, or even in your greater community who might be interested, please let the pastors know. These workshops offer a very high quality experience and a great opportunity to focus on the divine principle in either a 4-day or 7-day format. So take a look at these dates. Feel free to check your calendar, or also spread the word that these are continuing into the beginning of December. And this is the view of the IPEC Center. In case you're not familiar, as you can see, it's a really beautiful building, and it offers a really best-in-class experience to all the guests who attend. And lastly, we want to thank two families who've been really engaged in supporting the success of our cooking and cleaning efforts. So we want to thank the Bruner family, who will be cooking and cleaning next week, and we want to extend a sincere thank you to the Smith family, who is cooking and cleaning today. So let's give them a round of applause and appreciation. Thank you so much, and as always, if you're interested in attending, please talk to the pastors so that your name can be up on the big screen next time.